What happens when a comedian known for razor-sharp political satire sits down with one of daytime television's most beloved hosts, and the conversation veers into territory neither of them expected? No one in the studio that day anticipated what would follow. What was scheduled as a cheerful, promotional appearance would later be whispered about in industry circles as one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. By the time the cameras cut away, it was clear that something had gone profoundly off script. Randy Rainbow sat across from Kelly Clarkson on her vibrant talk show set, surrounded by warm lighting, pastel colors, and the carefully curated energy of daytime optimism. Kelly greeted him with her trademark smile, open, inviting, practiced to perfection. Randy responded with his usual theatrical flair, relaxed but alert, fully aware that daytime television often demands a softer version of whoever walks onto its stage. At first, everything felt easy. Kelly opened with playful banter, praising Randy's success and the viral reach of his political parody songs. The audience laughed. Randy joked back. The chemistry seemed effortless, the kind of lighthearted exchange producers dream of. Then Kelly leaned slightly forward in her chair. "Randy," she said, her tone still friendly, "your political parodies have become such a phenomenon. But don't you ever worry about going too far with some of your content?" The question landed heavier than expected. Randy shifted in his seat, eyebrows lifting. "Too far," he repeated. "Kelly, reality already went too far. I'm just holding up a mirror to the absurdity." A few nervous laughs fluttered through the audience. Kelly nodded slowly but pressed on, suggesting that some of his videos cross lines, especially when they harshly target certain politicians. This time, the smile faded from Randy's face. The theatrical ease gave way to something sharper, more defensive. "Comedy has always been about pushing boundaries," Randy said. "That's literally the point. Are we seriously having this conversation right now?" Kelly leaned in as well, her tone firming. "I just think there's a responsibility that comes with having such a big platform. Some of your content can be pretty divisive." That word did it. Divisive? Randy shot back. "Calling out corruption and incompetence isn't divisive. It's necessary." He paused, then added pointedly, "And you're going to lecture me about responsibility while hosting a show that thrives on celebrity, gossip, and consumer fluff." A low murmur rippled through the studio. The audience sensed the shift instantly. This was no longer banter. This was confrontation. Kelly's smile tightened. "I think you're misunderstanding me." "No," Randy replied, his voice rising. "I understand perfectly. You invited me here to promote my work, and now you're trying to shame me for the very thing that made me visible. This is classic mainstream media behavior." Kelly's tone grew defensive. "Randy, I'm not trying to shame you. I'm asking questions my audience would want answered." "Your audience," Randy shot back, "or your network executives, because there's a difference, Kelly, and we both know it." The tension was now unmistakable. The bright set felt suddenly claustrophobic. Kelly attempted to redirect the conversation, suggesting they talk about Randy's upcoming projects. Randy wasn't having it. "Oh, now you want to move on," he said. "Convenient. Drag me through an interrogation about responsibility, and when I push back, suddenly, it's time for small talk." Kelly flushed. "I wasn't interrogating you. Interesting discussions." Randy pressed would be about my process, my inspiration, not whether I'm being too mean to politicians actively harming people. That's not curiosity. That's an ambush disguised as a friendly chat. The exchange grew sharper, more personal. Kelly defended her show, saying they tackle serious issues all the time. Randy scoffed. "Do you?" he asked. "Or do you skim over them in the most superficial way possible, just enough to seem socially conscious without ever making your audience uncomfortable? When was the last time you had a conversation here that actually challenged someone?" The studio fell silent. Audience members sat frozen. Some shifted uneasily. Others quietly raised their phones, sensing they were witnessing something unscripted and volatile. Kelly's professional composure wavered. "You're being incredibly unfair," she said. "You don't know how I run my show." "From where I'm sitting," Randy replied, "it feels like I walked into an ambush. You knew exactly what my content was when you booked me. So why pretend to be shocked now that I have opinions?" What began as light-hearted banter had erupted into a televised showdown, one that neither side seemed willing to retreat from. Randy argued that real conversations happen off camera, while audiences are fed manufactured positivity designed to distract rather than engage. Kelly took a visible deep breath, trying to regain control of the segment. "Look," she said carefully, "I understand you're passionate about your work, and I respect that, but attacking me personally isn't productive." "Attacking you personally?" Randy shot back. "I'm not attacking you as a person. I'm criticizing a system you happen to be very successful in. There's a difference." Kelly bristled. "But you're sitting on my show, telling me that everything I do is meaningless corporate propaganda." "I'm saying daytime television has become a vehicle for avoiding real conversations about real problems," Randy replied. "If that description fits, maybe it's worth examining." The tension in the room was now thick enough to cut with a knife. Behind the cameras, producers gestured frantically, signaling Kelly to wrap things up, but the moment had slipped beyond control. "Randy," Kelly said finally, voice tight, "I invited you here because I thought you were funny and talented. And not because you wanted to be lectured about the state of media." Randy finished for her. The cameras lingered for a fraction of a second too long before cutting away, capturing two people locked in a stare that said far more than words ever could. By the time the episode aired, viewers would debate who was right, who crossed a line, and whether daytime television was built for conversations like this at all. But one thing was undeniable. That day, the mask of cheerful television cracked, and what showed through made everyone deeply uncomfortable. Randy leaned forward in his chair, his expression no longer playful, no longer theatrical. The air in the studio felt heavier now, as though something invisible but undeniable had settled between them. "And I came here," he said slowly, deliberately, "because I genuinely believed that maybe, just maybe, someone in mainstream media actually wanted to have a real conversation, a serious one, a conversation about why comedy matters in dark times, why satire isn't just entertainment but survival." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Apparently I was wrong. Kelly's smile, once warm and inviting, tightened almost imperceptibly. Her posture shifted, defensive now rather than open. "Randy," she said carefully, "you're making a lot of assumptions about my intentions and about this show, and those assumptions just aren't accurate." Randy didn't hesitate. "Then prove me wrong," he shot back. "Ask me something real. Ask me why I believe humor is one of the last defenses we have against fascism, rather than asking me to justify my existence as an artist." The words seemed to echo through the studio. "Fascism?" Kelly repeated, eyebrows lifting. "Don't you think that's a pretty extreme word to throw around?" Randy's eyes widened, not in surprise but in recognition. "And there it is," he said sharply. "That right there is the problem. You think the word fascism is extreme, but you don't think the policies, the behaviors, the erosion of norms that define fascism are extreme. That disconnect, that willful blindness, is exactly what I'm talking about." Kelly shook her head, her voice firmer now. "I'm not willfully blind to anything. I just think we should be careful about using inflammatory language." "What's inflammatory?" Randy replied without missing a beat. "Is pretending that calling a spade is somehow worse than the spade itself. What's inflammatory is tone, policing the people who are sounding the alarm while the house is literally burning down around us." The audience, which moments earlier had been murmuring and reacting, had fallen completely silent. No laughter, no applause, just the soft hum of studio lights and the sense that something unusually raw was unfolding in real time. Kelly took a breath, visibly trying to steady herself. "I think you're being unfair. To me and to my audience, we care about these issues too." "Do you?" Randy challenged, his voice quieter but more cutting. "Because caring about issues and actually addressing them are two very different things. Caring is easy, it's emotional, it costs nothing. Action requires risk, and risk," he added pointedly, "is bad for ratings." A ripple of discomfort passed across Kelly's face. "So what?" she asked, her patience thinning. "You're saying everyone in mainstream media is a coward." "That's not what I said," Randy replied, though his tone left little room for comfort. "I'm saying mainstream media operates within constraints, corporate, political, economic, that make real courage almost impossible. And yes, that includes this show. And yes, That includes this conversation we're having right now. Kelly's expression hardened. So what you're really saying, she said, is that this conversation is fake, that it's meaningless just because it's happening here. What I'm saying, Randy corrected, is that we're having this conversation inside a framework that's designed to keep it from going anywhere that actually matters. We're performing authenticity instead of practicing it. We're checking boxes instead of challenging power. Performing authenticity, Kelly shot back. I'm being completely genuine with you right now. Are you? Randy asked. Because genuine Kelly, the person, the human being, probably has real opinions about the state of the world. But talk, show. Host Kelly has to stay neutral, palatable, brand, safe. So which one am I talking to right now? The question hung in the air, sharp and unresolved. Kelly's jaw tightened. For a moment, it looked as though she might deflect, redirect, or cut to commercial. Instead, she leaned forward. You know what, Randy? She said. You're right, let me be genuine with you. Her voice was steady now, but there was an edge to it. I think you're being incredibly arrogant. You walk onto my show and immediately start attacking everything about it. My work, my intentions, the audience that's been supporting me for years. Randy didn't interrupt. He simply listened. You assume bad faith. Kelly continued, instead of recognizing that people can care deeply and still choose different ways of expressing it. You act like if someone isn't shouting at the top of their lungs, they must be complicit. That's not fair, and it's not productive. Randy nodded slowly. I don't think you're evil, he said. I don't think your audience is stupid. What I think is that comfort has become the enemy of urgency, and when the world is on fire, comfort becomes a luxury we can't afford. Kelly exhaled, the tension between them still unresolved, but now undeniably real. And what you don't seem to understand, she replied, is that if we push people too hard, they stop listening altogether. Maybe, Randy said softly, or maybe they've been lulled into not listening at all. Neither of them spoke after that. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, thoughtful, unresolved. The kind of silence that doesn't signal the end of a conversation, but the beginning of a much harder one. Randy stood as well, rising from his chair to match Kelly's energy without hesitation. The movement sent a visible jolt through the studio. The coffee table between them suddenly felt less like set decor and more like a symbolic fault line. The studio lights seemed hotter now, harsher, as if even they sensed the escalation. Two figures, host and guest, faced each other not as entertainer and entertainer, but as ideological opponents. Kelly's voice trembled, not with fear, but with barely contained frustration. This is centrist nonsense, Randy said flatly, his words cutting through the air before she could finish her thought. Randy, Kelly snapped back, you don't even know what I believe personally. You're making sweeping judgments about me based on absolutely nothing. Nothing. Randy shot back immediately. I'm making judgments based on exactly what you've shown me for the last 10 minutes. He gestured broadly around the set. You've spent this entire conversation trying to get me to apologize for having strong convictions about right and wrong. I have not asked you to apologize for anything, Kelly insisted, her voice firm but strained. I've asked you to consider that maybe your way isn't the only way to create positive change. Positive change, Randy repeated, throwing his hands up in visible exasperation. Positive change starts with acknowledging when something is wrong, not finding ways to make everyone feel better about terrible situations. And you think insulting and mocking people is going to make them suddenly see the light? Kelly challenged. I think holding people accountable for their actions is more important than protecting their feelings, Randy countered without missing a beat. I think truth matters more than comfort. Truth, Kelly replied sharply. Your truth, your perspective, your interpretation of events, but you present it like it's the only way to see things. When it comes to basic human rights and democratic principles, Randy shot back, yes, there is only one acceptable way to see things. This isn't a matter of opinion, Kelly. Kelly shook her head, disbelief flickering across her face. Everything is a matter of opinion, Randy. That's what living in a democracy means. Randy stared at her, stunned. No, he said slowly, deliberately. Everything is not a matter of opinion. The earth is round, gravity exists, and trying to overturn elections is wrong. He stepped slightly closer to the table. These aren't opinions, they're facts. The audience remained motionless, hanging on every word. But how you respond to those facts, Kelly said carefully, how you talk about them, how you treat people who disagree with you, those are choices, and I choose. Randy replied, voice steady but intense. To respond with the urgency the situation demands instead of pretending everything is fine while people's rights are being stripped away. Kelly crossed her arms defensively. And I choose to believe that shaming and alienating people only hardens them. Then what's your alternative? Randy demanded. Smile at them until they stop hurting people. Invite them onto your couch and hope kindness magically fixes cruelty. That's not what I'm saying, Kelly protested. But that's what you're doing, Randy shot back. Daytime television specializes in softening reality. You wrap hard truths in platitudes so no one has to sit with discomfort. Kelly's jaw tightened. You think I don't care about real issues? You think I'm shallow because I want to create a space that doesn't constantly feel like a battlefield? I think. Randy replied, lowering his voice, that there's a difference between offering relief and offering escape. One helps people survive, the other helps them avoid. Kelly took a step back, visibly rattled. You're turning this into something it's not. No, Randy said, I'm saying out loud what polite media refuses to say. Behind the cameras, producers waved frantically, signaling for a commercial break. The bandleader avoided eye contact entirely. The audience didn't clap, they didn't cheer, they barely breathed. You keep talking about bringing people together. Randy continued. But together around what? Neutrality, silence, comfort. You can't unify people around avoidance. And you can't unify people around constant outrage. Kelly shot back. People are exhausted. They're exhausted because the problems haven't stopped. Randy replied. Not because people talk about them too much. Kelly's voice cracked. So what, everyone who isn't as loud or aggressive as you is complicit? No, Randy said. Everyone who prioritizes comfort over justice needs to ask themselves why. That's an unfair burden to put on entertainers, Kelly argued. Then stop pretending entertainment is neutral, Randy said. Stop pretending platforms don't matter. Kelly paced a step away from her chair, hands clenched. You're acting like I'm the enemy. I'm saying the system is broken, Randy replied. And you're successful within it. That doesn't make you evil, but it does make you responsible. Kelly turned back to face him. I didn't build this system. No, Randy said, but you benefit from it, and that gives you power, whether you acknowledge it or not. The studio felt smaller now, tighter. The friendly pastel set had transformed into a pressure cooker. I bring joy to people, Kelly said again, softer this time. And joy matters, Randy conceded. But joy without truth becomes distraction, and distraction is a luxury people under attack don't have. Kelly shook her head slowly. You think you're helping, but maybe you're just preaching to people who already agree with you. Maybe, Randy replied. But silence helps the people causing harm, not me. The director's voice crackled faintly through an earpiece. Time was running out. Control was slipping. Kelly inhaled deeply. Randy, this isn't productive anymore. Uncomfortable doesn't mean unproductive, Randy said. Sometimes it's the opposite. Kelly looked around the studio. The audience, the cameras, the crew. This isn't what this show is. And that, Randy replied quietly, is exactly the problem. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Two public figures stood frozen under unforgiving lights, locked in a moment that could not be edited, spun, or smoothed over. The illusion of friendly television had shattered completely, and whether anyone liked it or not, the conversation had gone somewhere it was never meant to go. Once again, the question lingered in the air, heavy, unresolved, impossible to ignore. Is the purpose of media to comfort people, or to tell them the truth, even when it burns? Kelly shook her head vigorously, her hair swaying with the force of the motion. Randy, nobody is pretending everything is fine, she said, her voice tight with frustration. But screaming at people isn't solving anything. It doesn't fix the world. It doesn't bring anyone together. Randy leaned back slightly, his jaw clenched. I'm not screaming at people, Kelly, he replied. I'm using humor. I'm using satire. I'm holding up a mirror to absurdity, hypocrisy, and corruption. If that feels like screaming to you, maybe the real question is why it makes you so uncomfortable. Because it is aggressive, Kelly insisted, refusing to back down. It's divisive. It pushes people away instead of bringing them in. And when people feel attacked, they stop listening. Good, Randy snapped, his voice rising for the first time. Some people should be pushed away. Not every perspective deserves to be welcomed, and not every voice deserves a seat at the table. There are lines, moral lines. Kelly's eyes widened. See that right there? That's exactly what I'm talking about, she fired back. That kind of absolutist thinking is dangerous. Dangerous, Randy repeated incredulously. You know what's actually dangerous? Giving platforms to people who spread misinformation, fear, and hate, and then turning around and policing the people who call them out. That's dangerous. And you know what's dangerous too? Kelly shot back, pointing a finger at him now. Creating content that makes people angrier and more divided instead of helping them find solutions. Rage isn't a solution, Randy. Solutions? Randy laughed bitterly, shaking his head. The solution is for good people to stop being polite to bad people. The solution is for people with massive platforms like yours, to stop pretending that neutrality is a virtue when one side is actively trying to dismantle democracy. You're completely twisting everything I'm saying, Kelly said sharply, her voice starting to crack under the strain. No, Randy snapped. I'm hearing exactly what you're saying. You're saying my comedy is problematic because it takes sides. You're saying standing up to authoritarianism is divisive. You're saying calling out corruption is inflammatory. Kelly's face flushed, anger spreading across her features. I never said any of those things. You absolutely did, Randy shot back. You've spent this entire interview trolling me about my tone, my delivery, my approach, while completely ignoring the substance of what I'm actually trying to accomplish. Trolling. Kelly repeated, stunned. Randy, I was trying to have a thoughtful, nuanced discussion about the role of political comedy in our culture. No, Randy said firmly. You were trying to get me to admit that I'm part of the problem, so you could feel better about your own complicity in the system. The word complicity seemed to hit her physically. Kelly inhaled sharply, her voice trembling now. My complicity? You don't know anything about my life. You don't know my values. You don't know what I do when the cameras aren't rolling. I know what you do when the cameras are rolling. Randy replied coldly, and that's what matters. I know you use your platform to promote safe, sanitized content. And designed not to offend, not to disrupt, not to challenge anyone to think differently about anything that actually matters. That's not true, Kelly said, shaking her head. And it's incredibly unfair. Randy exhaled slowly and began gathering his things. His jacket, his notes, his bag. The movement itself felt like a statement. You know what's unfair, Kelly, he said quietly. Living in a country where comedians have to be the ones telling the truth, because journalists won't do it, and talk show hosts won't do it. The audience gasped softly as the reality of what was happening set in. Randy, where are you going? Kelly asked, her voice no longer combative, but unsettled. I came here expecting a real conversation. Randy replied without looking back. And not a performance of concern, not a debate about tone while the world burns. If this space can't handle urgency, then it's not a space for honesty. Kelly watched him stand, the cameras still rolling, the silence deafening. For the first time since the show began, there was no script, no segment, no easy transition, just the uncomfortable truth hanging in the air, all unresolved and impossible to ignore.